My buddy Mark and I had been planning the World Cup trip for months. We weren't exactly die-hard soccer fans, but any excuse to get out of town and sit in a packed stadium felt like reason enough to book the tickets. We got there early, found our seats, and settled in. The energy was insane. Tens of thousands of people were crammed into one space, all buzzing off the same thing. By kickoff, I was already on my third beer and feeling pretty great about the whole decision, when my eyes fell on this guy sitting about 6 rows ahead of us and a few seats to the left. I noticed him only because he was the only person in that entire section not watching the game. While everyone else was angled toward the pitch and reacting to the ball, he was turned completely around in his seat, facing back into the crowd and eyeing me up. At first, I brushed it off, figuring he might be looking for somebody, but he didn't look like he was scanning around. He was still as a statue, staring directly at me without any of the restless shifting a person does when they're searching for a friend. I looked away and told myself I was imagining it. A few minutes passed. When I looked back, he was still staring. We locked eyes and he grinned at me, sticking his tongue out. It was enough to make my skin crawl. Giggling at my scrunched up nose, he opened his mouth even wider, and I felt my stomach drop. The guy didn't have a single tooth. His gums were bare and smooth, like he'd never had any teeth to begin with. His lips were stretched into this massive, creepy grin that looked completely wrong, and his tongue was crazy long, hanging way past his chin and brushing against his jawline. He locked eyes with me again, gave a little head tilt, and started moving that insane tongue, doing this weird panting thing like a dog in the summer heat. I grabbed Mark's arm and pointed. "Dude, look, there's this weirdo guy 6 rows down." Mark took a quick peek, maybe 3 seconds, and shrugged. "Nah, I don't see anything strange." He turned back to the game. I told him to look again, specifically at the guy who wasn't watching the match and was turned around in his seat. Mark looked again, shrugged, and said there were like 40,000 people here and half of them probably weren't watching the game either. The stadium erupted as the team scored and the whole place went nuts. Banners went up, confetti flew, and everyone was screaming and cheering. I tried to find the weirdo through the mess of high fives and hugs, but couldn't see him. Eventually, I figured I was just psyching myself out and decided to enjoy the moment with everyone else. When the noise settled and everyone sat back down, the man was closer. He jumped 4 rows and was sitting in a spot he definitely had not been in before. My hand tightened on my cup. As time progressed, it kept happening. Every goal scare, every eruption where the crowd pulled my attention to the pitch for 3 seconds, he moved. By halftime, he was close enough that I could see him clearly. The tongue was still out and moving. His eyes hadn't blinked once in the entire time I'd been watching him. He was surrounded by normal people eating nachos and checking their phones, and not a single one of them reacted to him. I leaned over and asked the guy sitting next to him if he knew him. He looked at me, glanced at the seat beside him, and asked if I was high or something. I was losing my mind. When the second half started, he was 3 seats over, right in my row. My heart started hammering, and I was barely breathing. I could actually hear his soft, steady panting, like someone breathing heavily in a closet. I practically clawed at Mark's arm and kept saying his name until he finally turned. "What the fuck, dude? There's this really weird guy 3 seats over." "The seats are empty. There's no one there, Jason." But he was. The man leaned forward and shot that tongue out, making it even longer than I'd seen yet. He let out this little awful giggle at me freaking out and whistled. He then proceeded to swing his tongue around like a snake. It curled up slowly, wrapping around his cheek, sliding right up towards his eye, then pulling back and doing the whole gross thing over and over. I was horrified. Suddenly, both ends of his tongue shot out at the same time and started coiling up over his face. It looked like it was tightening, and he was choking. I closed my eyes and started screaming my head off. I only knew I was doing it because Mark was suddenly shaking me by the shoulders, and the whole section went dead quiet. Someone nearby even shouted to ask if I was having a seizure. "Jason, what's wrong? What's wrong?" Mark was shaking me. I opened my eyes and pointed at the seat, but it was empty. My mouth dried up. We sat there for the rest of the second half, and I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened in the match. I was watching that seat. The people around it went back to the game like nothing had happened, like they'd been doing the entire time. Mark didn't say much on the way back to the hotel. I could tell he didn't know whether to be worried or chalk it up to too much beer. Later, I checked the seating chart for that section. The seat he ended up in showed up as unsold in the game records. Seriously, no one was supposed to be sitting there. I've told this story a bunch since then. I can always see the moment on people's faces when they decide I must have imagined the whole thing. Maybe I did, but I honestly don't know what's scarier. A guy with no teeth and that crazy tongue showing up in a packed stadium where only I could see him? Or the thought that whatever that thing was, it was sitting 3 seats away, and I was the only one it was focused on.